Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really monumental shift in how we build the modern world. For decades, civil engineering relied on a climate that, well, it simply no longer exists. So today, we're looking at how the entire field is actively tearing up the old rulebook to survive the incredibly complex, extreme challenges of tomorrow. Let's jump right in. Here is the stark reality we're facing right now. The critical systems that we all rely on every single day, our roads, our bridges, our drainage networks, they were designed for conditions their original creators just never anticipated. We're literally watching infrastructure built to withstand yesterday's climate get repeatedly tested and frankly bested by our current reality. I mean, consider this fact. The mythical 100-year storm, a storm with a 1% chance of happening in any given year, is now hitting some regions every decade. It's wild. The baseline math of civil engineering has fundamentally changed.
To understand this massive pivot, here's our agenda. We're going to cover 1. The new climate reality, 2. Rethinking flood defense, 3. Beating the urban heat, 4. Coastal and wind resilience, 5. The philosophy of system failure, and 6. Engineering an uncertain future.
All right, starting things off with Section 1, the new climate reality, moving past historical data.
Let's identify the fatal flaw and how we used to build things. Traditional design relied almost entirely on historical data. The foundational assumption was always that the past was this perfect, reliable predictor of the future. But honestly, relying on historical weather maps today, it's a lot like driving down a crowded highway at 80 miles an hour while only staring into your rearview mirror. It is incredibly dangerous. Climate change has just completely obliterated that historical baseline. Tons of regions are now routinely experiencing much more intense rainfall, higher temperatures, and far more severe storms than those historical records ever even hinted at. So, resilient design throws out the rearview mirror. Instead of asking what happened 50 years ago, it actively engineers for projected future extremes based on dynamic climate modeling. And that brings us to resilient design, which is the practice of engineering infrastructure specifically to withstand and quickly recover from increasingly severe climate-related events. This definition is basically the hero of our whole explainer today. It's a really vital distinction. It isn't just about building a stronger, thicker concrete wall. No, it is entirely about surviving the hit and bouncing back fast. Think of it kind of like a heavyweight boxer. Instead of trying to build an impossibly impenetrable shield, a boxer learns how to take a punch, absorb the kinetic energy, and immediately get right back on their feet. That mandate for quick recovery is completely changing how engineers look at their blueprints.
Okay, Section 2. Rethinking flood defense and adapting to intense rainfall.
When we apply that resilient mindset to our first major elemental threat, water, we immediately see where the old storm assumptions are being washed away. Engineers are responding to unprecedented rainfall with massive physical and analytical adaptations. Flood-resistant design has become a central, unavoidable focus. They're ripping up the old historical averages and designing stormwater systems using advanced predictive climate modeling. And down at the building level, elevated construction is basically becoming the standard in vulnerable areas. We're no longer putting the critical mechanical equipment or the electrical panels down in the basement. They are being raised entirely above the newly projected flood levels just to keep the building alive, even if the ground floor takes on water. Macroscopically, coastal megacities are investing in staggering, large-scale sea baits and storm surge protections. These are engineered to save millions of residents from sudden, catastrophic inundation.
But here's the thing, pouring more concrete is only half the solution. We are increasingly complementing those traditional, highly stressed, pipe-based stormwater systems, which we call gray infrastructure, with natural, green infrastructure. Have you ever heard of sponge cities? This is the whole idea behind them. By integrating permeable pavement that lets water soak directly right into the ground, along with rain gardens and restored urban wetlands, we add this amazing flexible layer of hydraulic relief that rigid pipes simply can't offer. It fundamentally alters the hydrology of a city. And what that means for us is way less severe street flooding in your neighborhood during a torrential downpour.
Moving on to Section 3, beating the urban heat, redesigning for extreme temperatures. Water is tough, but we also have to engineer our way out of increasingly severe, prolonged urban heat. And a seemingly simple change in civil engineering materials can actually completely revolutionize how we combat the urban heat island effect. You see, traditional dark asphalt acts as a massive thermal battery. It absorbs intense solar radiation all day long, and then it turns city streets into radiating ovens long into the night. By switching to cool, reflective pavements, cities are essentially changing the albedo of their streets. That just means they are bouncing that solar energy back into the atmosphere rather than storing it, which drastically drops surface temperatures. This, right alongside increasing the urban tree canopy, is absolutely crucial for keeping densely populated areas livable. And obviously, the buildings flanking those streets are being forced to adapt as well. Building materials and HVAC systems are increasingly being engineered to handle vastly higher peak temperatures than historical building codes ever required. This is incredibly important. Why? Because it's no longer just a comfort issue, it's a critical life safety issue. During a prolonged, record-breaking heatwave, electrical grids face unprecedented peak loads. If passive cooling isn't integrated into the architecture, and if the mechanical system can't efficiently cool the building during an unprecedented spike, well, the infrastructure has fundamentally failed its occupants right when they are most vulnerable.
Now for Section 4, Coastal and Wind Resilience, facing rising seas and intense storms.
As we move out to the coastlines, the engineering math gets even more complicated, thanks to the combined assault of wind and rising seas. Coastal infrastructure faces a very specific compounding challenge. Because rising sea levels gradually increase the baseline risk of both regular tidal flooding and extreme storm surge damage, engineers are having to stretch their timeline significantly. Coastal infrastructure is now engineered with a much longer, way more dynamic planning horizon. Just think about it. If you're building a bridge today and it has an expected service life of 75 years, you can't just engineer it for today's high tide. You have to explicitly account for the projected sea level rise all the way out to the year 2100. It is a constantly moving target that totally alters the baseline physics of the structure.
And above the water, historical wind maps are quite literally being thrown into the shredder. Because so many areas are experiencing storms that are far more frequent and exponentially more intense than historical records ever indicated, wind load calculations are getting a drastic update. Engineers are adopting highly aerodynamic building profiles and totally upgrading facade attachments to ensure that these massive investments don't literally get blown apart by the new categories of extreme weather.
Which brings us to Section 5, the philosophy of system failure, designing for the worst-case scenario.
So we've looked at the physical forces of water, heat, and wind. But here's a somewhat existential question for you. What happens beyond the physical building materials when an entire network or grid is tested beyond its limits? What actually happens when the system is just completely overwhelmed? No matter how resilient the design is, no matter how high we build the seawall or how aerodynamically perfect we make the skyscraper, what happens when a localized climate event simply exceeds all of our worst-case projections? Because in engineering, absolute invincibility is a myth.
The answer to that dread is a deeply fascinating concept called graceful degradation. Engineers now design specifically for this threshold. It means ensuring that even if a system is overwhelmed, it fails in a controlled, predictable, and less damaging way. Think of graceful degradation kind of like the crumple zones in a modern car. The car's frame is explicitly engineered to destroy itself in a very specific, kinetic way in order to absorb the impact and save the passenger inside. Applied to civil engineering, it's about designing a safe failure to protect the core function of the city. To guarantee this kind of safe failure, engineers are building deep redundancy into our major networks, ensuring critical systems have immediate backup capacity so a single node's failure doesn't trigger a cascading collapse. A really prime example of this is the deployment of microgrids. When the macroelectrical grid goes down during a hurricane, a microgrid allows critical facilities like hospitals or emergency response centers to detach and maintain power independently. The macrogrid degrades safely while the life-saving systems stay online. Ultimately, resilience here is judged by recovery time. It's all about how rapidly the system can return to full capacity after the storm passes. Finally, Section 6, Engineering an Uncertain Future, looking at the economics and the future of resilience.
Let's zoom out for a second, because physics and materials aren't the only forces dictating this monumental shift. Economics is playing a huge role. The ripple effects of resilient design are restructuring entire macro systems. In the planning sector, developers can no longer just break ground. Climate resilience assessments are increasingly mandatory for major projects to formally evaluate future vulnerability. Environmentally, nature-based solutions, like restoring coastal mangrove forests, are no longer just ecological pet projects. They are recognized as highly effective, lower-cost storm barriers that often outperform concrete. And perhaps most importantly, in the world of finance, money talks. Insurance companies are now directly factoring climate resilience into their underwriting. If a coastal development doesn't incorporate these resilient adaptations, it becomes virtually uninsurable. This financial reality is actively forcing the hands of developers worldwide.
So this leaves us with what might be the most profound question for the entire field of civil engineering. How do we actively design for a constantly changing and uncertain future over many decades of service? We can't perfectly predict it, which requires a complete paradigm shift. We can no longer build static monuments to the past. Our infrastructure has to become as adaptable, flexible, and resilient as nature itself, constantly evolving right alongside the climate. Are we ready to completely rethink the foundation of the modern world? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.